Welcome back, everyone. This is part 2 of the story that we started covering yesterday. If you are new, make sure to watch part 1 first so that this video will make sense. It's about an hour long and I'll be linking it in the description as well as the top right corner. This is going to be my final update as I've had 2 friends in real life approach me about my original posts and I'm really uncomfortable sharing this with anyone other than internet strangers. So after this is posted, I'm going to spend a day or so responding to comments before signing out permanently from this account. It was supposed to be a throwaway for these reasons anyhow. The last week and a half has been an extremely depressing and stressful time. I don't know why it took so long for it to set in with me, but in the days after my last update, the new information that my ex gave me concerning her relationship with Max started eating me alive. I began imagining them sneaking off every time my back was turned. I faced the fact that she was never truly mine, that I was just some placeholder man and babysitter here to provide a cover for her degenerate relationship. By the end of it, I came to the realization that I'm not going to continue to live my life as an extension of hers. This, of course, means that I will not be seeking any sort of relationship with her son after the divorce. It is the worst feeling I've ever had in my life, but I can't imagine myself ever getting better or truly living my life on my own terms if I can't get out from under her shadow. I know many of you don't want to hear me say this. I never thought I'd have to, but he's still young, I'm still young, and there will be many years to heal from this. Sherry's life has been a living hell for the last 4 days. Her brother arrived earlier in the week and she was so relieved to finally see her family in all this. When she introduced me as the ex-husband of Max's AP and mentioned that we had been supporting each other through this, he pretty much figured out that we were seeing each other. He took me aside, as I expected any big brother might do, and expressed concerns that she might be jumping into things too early. I explained to him that she and I had that same conversation and that we were taking it easy because of this. I told him that I respected his sister and that our relationship mostly began because I knew she had no support locally, and being hurt in the same affair, I thought we could relate. I also told him that if they decided it was best for her to go back home, I wasn't going to stand in the way. Her recovery should come first, not only for herself, but for her daughter. After that, he and I got along as well as could be expected. When things were finally looking up, Sherry got a call from the hospital. Max is in the ICU. He didn't leave a note, so the reasons are still not clear, but he ingested a dangerous amount of antifreeze. Obviously, with all the drama and shame of having his affair discovered, isn't far-fetched, but on the other hand, of all the ways to kill yourself, who thinks of a method like this? I mentioned before that he was rumored to be getting into drugs, so accidental poisoning can't be ruled out. In any case, Sherry is now feeling tremendously guilty over this, as unwarranted as that might be. Max's parents went from universally condemning him to asking Sherry whether or not she'd consider reconciling with him. She told me that she told them she'd consider it, but only because she didn't want to see them hurting anymore on top of this. As of writing this, he's been in the ICU for 5 days. I don't know all the technical terms, but there's a concern with crystal deposits in the brain edema. He had a heart attack at some point during his initial treatment, and honestly, nothing really looks good for him. Sherry told me that even if they manage to save him, the amount of brain damage he's received will impact him severely for the rest of his life. I can't say I pity him, I don't wish death or suffering on anyone, but this man had a hand in ruining my marriage, depriving a father of a son, ruining his own marriage, and depriving a daughter of having a healthy father in her life. I'm just here for Sherry until she decides what she's going to do with her life following this. If she decides she wants to try and make it work with me, I'm open to that. If she wants to head back south to be with her family, I fully support that too. My ex, I hear, is actually seeing someone now, which probably means there were multiple guys in the shadows, which is a hard reality check for me. Apparently, I have the situational awareness of a drunken toddler, or maybe I had blinders on, but holy hell, I have no idea who I was even married to. That's part of my reason for not remaining in my stepson's life. I'll never get past the drama, and I'd have to sit back powerlessly and watch as her poor decisions continue to make his life worse and worse. I hope she smartens up and that her therapist actually gets her thinking right and responsible, but I have serious doubts she'll ever change. If 6 years of marriage didn't civilize her, I doubt a therapist will. I still don't get what I did wrong. I'm a good listener, I'm a provider, I clean up after myself, and I did my best to never make her feel unloved or unwanted. I raised her kid, I helped her aunts and uncles with home renovations, and I had a great relationship with her folks. Her father and I used to go out for a beer and watch the game together, independent of her, so it's not as if there was friction in how I dealt with her family. My family adored and accepted her and her son from day one. There were issues, I guess, but it's not like we had a marriage. We could have had better communication there, as there were some conflicts over dominance, but I thought what we had was strong enough to endure something like that. It turns out there was really no relationship at all, just a damn illusion. I wish I had something more positive to end this on, but this will be my last update. If you're interested in knowing what I intend to do with my life moving forward, it's basically one of two options, both of which will take place after this event with Max is over. I can't imagine myself leaving Sherry in the middle of all this, since she has been a constant pillar of support for me this whole time. Option 1, if Sherry wants to move back to her home state when this is over, I'll give her a kiss goodbye and send her on her way. No offense to that state, but I don't see a future for me there. If she wants me to go with her, we will have a discussion, and I might do some research on the area to see if I'm misjudging it. She makes me happy. She feels like how a loving partner ought to feel. I am not going to tell her how much she means to me because I want her to make choices that are best for her and her daughter without me clouding her judgment. If in the course of our discussion she tells me she loves me and wants to give us an honest try, I'll tell her how I feel and we'll go from there. I don't want to be morbid, but if Max doesn't pull through, we're both leaving the state anyway. Option 2, if Sherry and I don't continue our relationship, the answer is easier. I have friends and family on the West Coast that I've been missing, and my career has more opportunities for advancement there. Anyhow, I could really rediscover myself on my own and make a life for myself. In all honesty, this is probably what I'll most likely do. Go surfing again, stay in shape, find someone who will actually love me, start a family. The possibilities are endless. I've mentioned this to Sherry, and she expressed some interest in making a move like that because she's never been out west before. That would be an undertaking, but if the love and willingness are there, I'd be happy to date her for several months before deciding to take that step. Option 3, I forgot option 3. I could just remain here and climb the ladder at work now that there is nothing preventing me from doing that. I'm currently a quality control floor supervisor in the manufacturing industry. Most guys who've worked here as long as I have already gone corporate and sit behind a desk, and that should have been me as well, but they needed a night supervisor and I couldn't take the position before because of family. I could just remain here and flourish, get myself a new girlfriend, or if for some reason Sherry stays here, pursue a lasting relationship with her. I'm also looking into my disorder to see if any advancements have been made. Maybe there's a way I could have my own children now with no fear of passing anything on. I haven't looked into it in over a decade, so who knows. Once more, thank you for all the support and comments. It's still the start of a lifelong journey, and I'd be lying if I said I felt good about it, but things must go on. A now deleted user said the following in their comment. Bro, your ex will try to get back into your life. You're the only stability she has ever had, and she will be missing that within a year or two. I'm not saying to get back with that toxic human being, but I'm just giving you a warning. If you and Sherry, for whatever reason, decide to stay together, the ex will do her utmost to undermine your relationship with her. Just like the old song lyrics say, "You're gonna miss me when I'm gone." Good luck to you and Sherry. Another user named RedShibe4 said, so Max's parents suddenly have the nerve to ask Sherry to reconcile with a man who cheated on her with his cousin and attempted suicide because he couldn't face the consequences of his actions. Absolutely disgusting and a blatant act of emotional manipulation. What a way to paint her in a bad light and add more pressure than she already has. I hope you and Sherry stay strong and don't give in to these spineless people's demands. User Wellman81 said, damn, this is a bombshell of an update. To be honest, I don't see Max pulling through this, and if he does, he will be a vegetable that will require full-time care. Judging by their situation, Max will most likely end up in a mental institution for the rest of his life. As far as you go, you definitely need to move back out west and get yourself back in order. You do not have a future in your current location, and the memories are just too painful. A fresh start is what you need to truly heal from this traumatic experience. Option 2 is your only option. Another deleted user said, it's sad to see you go, but I completely understand. I loved reading your updates and the fact that you actually replied. I don't think anyone will ever judge you for not pursuing a relationship with your stepson though. He would definitely be used as a weapon by your ex. Can you tell if Sherry is going to get guilted into a relationship with Max again, or is she leaving him regardless of the outcome? I really hope you and Sherry work out though. It sounds like you two were made for each other. If you ever consider moving to her state just to try it out, even if you don't move in together, you could always find a place of your own, right? A fresh start, you know? And again, it's sad to see you go, man. I hope things work out for the best in your life. Despite saying that the last post was going to be the final update, OP gave us another post about 2 months later. This post is titled 3 months since my D-Day and my life is almost unrecognizable. I know 2 months ago I titled my last update as my last update, but I figured since there are some fairly huge developments in my walk down this crazy road, I'd share it all with you. If this is the first post you're seeing, back in early July, I came across some disgusting Facebook messages between my STBX and her cousin Max. With some further snooping, I discovered that they'd been involved for at least 10 years, which predates my relationship with her. The first person I told was Sherry, Max's wife. She outed them on social media pretty heavily. My ex took my stepson and moved back in with her parents while I remained in my current apartment. During the first few weeks after the discovery, Sherry and I met up for emotional support and to exchange evidence of the affair to help each other's divorce cases. It escalated to a physical relationship, and currently she is my girlfriend. Sherry's husband vanished from the picture after being outed, and though it was ultimately ruled as accidental, Max ingested a lethal amount of antifreeze and, as of the day after my last update, passed away. Things for Sherry turned ugly almost instantly. Max's parents, up until that point, had sided with her on everything, even allowing her to remain in their second home with her daughter. Max's death turned the situation around, and they began blaming her for it, mainly because of how she outed him so publicly. Secondly, the week before this happened, my STBX's parents spotted Sherry and me on a date, looking cozy together. We wanted to keep it all on the down low until the divorce, but we were outed and nobody on either side, my folks or hers, was thrilled about this. In my last update, I said that I would be unable to remain a stepfather to my ex's son. But in practice, for a few weeks, I resolved to be a weekend father against my own misgivings. I love him too much, as it turns out, to walk away. I would have been able to continue seeing him regularly, but my ex decided to end that once she found out Sherry and I were an item. I still see him. In fact, I took him apple picking last weekend. But it's clear she's not going to allow me to have regular weekly visits. Our divorce hearing is scheduled for mid-November, and aside from the occasional call to check in on my stepson, she and I have gone no contact. I've since learned that she had 2 more affairs, one before we were married and one during the marriage. When our mutual friends heard about the impending divorce, they came forward and mentioned times when they were suspicious of her behavior with these 2. I am really glad they stayed silent about these concerns for years. Now, I don't trust a single one of them. Nothing like finding out that everybody thinks you're an oblivious moron when you already think you're an oblivious moron. None of that really matters, and at this point, it's kind of like falling down and scraping my knee after getting shot. Like, yeah, it sucks, but comparatively, not so much. I mentioned how Sherry's former in-laws turned on her, and because of their constant harassing phone calls and threats of eviction, I offered to let her move in with me for the time being. Her original goal was to move back to her home state to be with her family, but we're just trying to figure out the best way to do this. I know some people are going to call us stupid, but after living together for a week, we decided not to go our separate ways and that we'll make a go of it in a real relationship. Absolutely nobody in our families is cheering this on, as they both rightly think we went too fast, and maybe we did, but we're both very happy together. I've also learned during this time that Sherry never finished high school as she moved to be with Max before she graduated. He also wanted to have those traditional family roles, outside of cousin and infidelity, so she doesn't have much experience working. She's currently working on getting her GED, and her family offered to pay for her to attend some form of higher education, provided she moves closer to home. As it turns out, there happens to be plenty of work in my field around where her family lives, and what with the current political bullshit, it's probably better to move out of the city anyway. Houses are also cheaper there, and the idea of owning my own home is pretty tempting, so I'll most likely head out that way myself when she does. Sherry and I are very close and have really taken good care of living together. We've both been in therapy over this, and there have been a few times we've even gone with each other to the other's appointment. We are both learning together what a relationship ought to be. I've only had 2 long-term relationships in my life, and from my ex-wife, I had just accepted it as normal that we were pretty distant from each other. There was no lack of intimacy between us, but I've realized just how much the ex and I were living in 2 separate worlds under the same roof. Sherry experienced similar feelings with Max. She texts and calls me frequently for no reason. We talk about our days and sit down to dinner together. She also cooks a lot, which has sparked an interest in me. Over the last few weeks, we've been finding interesting things to make together and it's fun. A shared interest in activity, 6 years with my ex, and I can't remember what our thing was or if we really had anything. I've kept it together pretty well, all things considered, but when I had a moment alone, I shed some tears over the fact that the last 6 years of my life were completely meaningless, and I've got nothing to show for it. The feeling passed pretty quickly. Sherry has her bad days. Therapy has really kept her afloat because in the week following Max's death, I was very afraid she might do something to hurt herself. I am making sure to take time for myself to heal, but helping her keep it together was really instrumental in keeping me moving forward. Whenever she isn't feeling down, we're connected at the hip. We go to bed at the same time and get up together, share the shower sometimes, lots of things I didn't know I needed in my life, LOL. Plus, I get to do some parenting stuff, such as feeding and putting her daughter down for sleep, which has allowed my dad's instincts to still be fed. The ex has, of course, learned of the relationship, and that's gone about as well as you might expect. She too blames Sherry for what Max did to himself. She seems to think everything would have been better if we had kept things between ourselves during the breakup rather than Sherry blowing up Facebook with the news. She says she would have never left our apartment if she had known that Sherry was going to move in before going on a tirade about how inadequate I apparently was before I had to hang up on her. November and my divorce can't come fast enough. Okay, the last paragraph, I swear, but I started writing this a couple of days ago, and as of this morning, Sherry took 2 pregnancy tests and both came back positive. So this is a curveball I hadn't been expecting. As everyone who's read my other posts knows, I'm terrified of passing on my bone disorder. We spent the day talking about it. She has gotten her period since separating from Max, so that's not a possibility. It must have been me getting careless. We still need a doctor's appointment to confirm, which is set up, and we've been Googling about my condition all day. The good news is we can find out as early as the 14th week if the child has a severe or moderate case. This year keeps piling on. If the child is healthy, I'll be happy no matter what. Neither of us is big on the idea of terminating a pregnancy unless of course they see a severe case, which in many instances means death at birth. So many worries. We've chosen to be happy with this until we see what's up at week 14. I'm in love with her, she's in love with me, and we're spiraling headlong into I don't f***ing know what. But I'm afraid. Hopeful, but so afraid that I've been praying about it, and to whom I don't know, I'm an atheist. TLDR, divorce coming in November, wife cheated twice more it turns out. Sherry is living with me and we might be pregnant. What the f*** happened to my life? A user named Bem424 said, I was happy to see an update from you. I'm so sorry that Max's family and your ex are taking his death out on Sherry. Honestly, if your ex makes any comments about it again, I'd remind her that if anyone is to blame aside from Max, it's her. She's the one who chose to have sex with her cousin for years, which led to his divorce and yours. It's not a matter of, oh, Sherry should have kept it quiet. It's a matter of, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't have been screwing him in the first place. You and Sherry being in a relationship and living together is none of your ex's business. She's the one who f***ed up your marriage and Sherry's. Others may think it's rushed and inappropriate, but you need to do whatever feels right to you and helps you heal from this trauma, as it does for Sherry. Is it trauma bonding? Maybe. Is Sherry the woman you were meant to be with? Maybe, but the fact that you're both showing each other what a real loving relationship is and how it should make you feel is what matters. I truly hope you get good results at week 14. To this OP responded with the following. I do tell my ex these things, just less friendly than how you're putting it. The fact that she feels entitled to any sort of emotional consideration from me is astounding. It's as if I was only supposed to move on terms that were comfortable for her. At one point, she got so crazy as to suggest that I had been cheating on her with Sherry, and that's basically the point where I hung up. I don't know why I didn't include this in the update, but like Sherry, Max's passing has really spun things around for her, and people are much less sympathetic. Another user named TheBulls508 said, oh wow, I can't wait until your monster of an ex hears about that. I wish you, Sherry, and this baby the best. You two deserve this happiness. Your ex and now former in-laws are assholes. What they did was unforgivable, and you two should be happy. If a happy marriage and a child come, then at least you two will have gotten something out of being around those toxic cousins. Then a user named 𝓕𝓚𝓚𝓝𝓚𝓚𝓚 said the following: "You really have to reassess how you make decisions. If there are only two choices and you choose randomly, you will be correct 50% of the time. Being wrong 100% of the time takes skill, as if you're doing it on purpose." OP gave the following response: "I haven't been wrong 100% of the time. I never gave reconciling a passing thought. I filed for divorce shortly after, and that's getting done. All else is a complicated human element. Where my stepson is concerned, it's difficult for me to just walk away from that. I love him, he never wronged me, and it hurts not seeing him. I know that has to change for his benefit, but all the mistakes I made in that department are out of my love for him and unwillingness to let go. With Sherry, I've made some bad choices. Starting the relationship was not a decision I made in a healthy place, and at first it was just two people grabbing onto anything positive while being flushed down the toilet. Turns out we actually really like each other, so when she was getting harassed by her former in-laws, I let her move in with me, which we both agreed would be a temporary thing until she could make arrangements to move home. Turns out we're compatible living partners and enjoy each other's company. She's still set to move home with or without me, but she's decided to stick around until after my divorce to do so in case I feel like coming along. Given the fact that I live in a city that saw heavy rioting and probably will again come election and inauguration, I'm pretty much settled on moving out to a rural area, and that area has jobs. The pregnancy is a gut punch because I can't pinpoint exactly where I messed up. It's not something I wanted to happen, and I thought I was taking enough precautions to avoid this. Without question, I'm getting a vasectomy. Too little, too late for this instance, but moving forward, it's a given. I am becoming a person that life is happening to, and I have to stop that right now and grab the reins. About another 9 months later, OP gave us another update. A year ago, today was the day I made the most life-changing discovery I'd ever made in my life, but I didn't know it at the time. I had just sat down to check Facebook, saw I had a message, and realized after I clicked it that it was my then wife's account that was active. Inside, there were messages of a sexual nature from her cousin Max. That got the ball rolling, and within 3 weeks of this message, Max's then wife Sherry and I collected evidence of their incestuous affair stretching back to the days of MySpace. And through the trauma, she and I began supporting each other and then dating. A year later, she is the mother of my firstborn child. This affair has changed the lives of so many people involved and surrounding it. Max, my ex's cousin, and AP ingested a lethal amount of antifreeze. Though it is highly probable that this was a suicide, we were told by the doctors who treated him that he had ingested just enough to kill himself, sort of suggesting that he was trying to self-harm as a cry for help. Sherry had been living on a property owned by Max's parents, and they had taken her side when the affair was made public, but took back their support when he died. Fearing they'd evict her or worse, she and her daughter moved into my apartment. Max's death also saw my ex openly hated and despised by her family for her role in the affair. They'd been blaming him for it and acting as though Max was a predator that had been molesting or abusing her until he died, and then the blame got shifted to her. She's no longer welcome at family gatherings, and the only people she speaks to are her own parents. I think the only reason they haven't disowned her is because of my former stepson. My ex-wife had been letting me continue to see my stepson after we split. My relationship with Sherry was outed around the time of Max's death, and this ultimately led to her fighting me over it. It still baffles my mind that even after I caught her in a 10-year-long affair, she had the audacity to act as though me seeing another woman was some sort of crime worth taking away the son I had raised since he was only a few months old. Ultimately, though, I decided on my own to walk away from the entire situation, as I felt like our constant fighting and my lack of legal authority over him would lead him to be even more unhappy and traumatized than if I just left. Those of you following me or reading the comments of other posts will know that Sherry and I have relocated to her home state, where I've started a new job and we're currently renting a home. We are also both in therapy individually, and we're being counseled together. We both understand that a lot can go wrong with relationships that form the way ours did, and we both want to work on communication and growing with one another so we can better navigate the tough times when they come. We're both survivors of infidelity. The story of how we fell in love can never be a cute story to tell the kids. One thing I learned about my marriage through therapy is just how much my own parents' terrible marriage has affected me. My dad is a good guy, a loving father, and my mother is a wonderful woman, but their relationship is a mess. My ex-wife and I never really fought or got into huge arguments. Now, as a kid living in a home with a loveless marriage, I always knew when things were bad. The loud arguments, the yelling, and what have you. When things were quiet, things were good. It wasn't happy, it wasn't healthy, but it wasn't outright conflict, so I associated it with good and healthy. My ex-wife, in all likelihood, never loved me, and I've come to realize that just because we didn't fight and there were no outward conflicts, this by no means meant things were happy. It's just that my only point of reference for goodness in a marriage was quiet, and I had quiet. I'll speak for Sherry a little as she's given me permission to share, but she had been made to feel completely dependent upon Max for everything. They met online, dated long distance, and he convinced her to move in with him, even if doing so meant she'd be dropping out of school. He also wanted to be one of those man of the house types, so he didn't allow her to work. No work and no school pretty much meant no friends outside of Max and my ex's family. Even worse, a year into it, he revealed to her that he was bisexual and informed her he'd see men every so often. Not knowing how to handle it, she just accepted that situation. She is now working on a means to get her GED so she can find a job should she choose to. I'm more than happy to provide for the mother of my child, but after not having a say in her own life for so long, she needs to be free to decide what she wants to do with it. The last I heard about my ex was that she got into an altercation at a parking meter with a traffic cop or meter maid, and the incident led to her arrest and the discovery of a whole host of prescription medications. At first, I was told that she stole them from someone, but it turns out she's been doctor shopping. She ended up doing some token 3 weeks of jail time, and her parents are currently fighting to have custody of my stepson. Life got difficult for her really quickly. I could write all day about this, but I'm going to end it here and answer questions if anybody wants to get more specific. But I think that just about does it. Thank you for all the support, everyone. You internet folks really helped talk me through all this. Then, about a week after this post, OP informed us that Sherry had planned to make her own post. A few days ago, Sherry created her own account and plans on doing as I did and writing it all out as it happened with her. She's been aware of my posting since the 3rd or 4th one and always loves reading the thoughtful comments and interactions I have with everyone. As I said in my last update, we're in counseling together, and I brought up the fact that I post on here as a way of getting it out of my system, putting it all out there, and she expressed interest in doing the same as a therapeutic exercise. And just a little while later, we got her post. The post is titled, "For months I've read my boyfriend's posts and updates. TLDR, I ignored many red flags and forgave to the point of being an idiot. Hello strangers. My name is not Sherry, but a lot of people on Reddit would know me by that name. For a year, my boyfriend has been posting and updating about his ex-wife's affair with my ex-husband, and a lot of the comments I have read have been the sweetest, most helpful advice I've ever heard. He did not want to show me what he was posting, but after he found out I watched Reddit videos on YouTube, he showed me his profile, and I have been reading them and giving input on them too, as he writes. My ex-husband, the one that is called Max in the old posts. We met online when I was still in school. I was 16 and he was 18, but we grew close pretty quickly and started a long-distance relationship. He visited me once in my home state for a week where we decided we were going to move in together. My father never liked Max from the start. I think my first red flag was when he came over to meet my parents for the first time. He was wearing pajama pants. For the rest of the relationship, they never called him my boyfriend or fiance, just pajama boy. We both loved anime, and I am an introvert, so for a while, he and 2 of my friends were really the only people I talked to. I never thought he was a bad person. I always thought he was like me and just awkward and not used to crowds or social situations. He was always mailing me DVDs, figures, and clothes I liked when he wasn't around, and in the beginning, he really did a lot to make me feel like he loved me. In my senior year of high school, he convinced me that we had to live together and be together. He did not threaten to break up with me, but he did start saying things like this was the prime of his life and that he could be dating and sleeping around, but he didn't because of me. I told him I wanted to finish out the year and told him this, and for a day or so, he talked like he was okay with it, only to start guilting me about the life I was keeping him from living. My home life was not ideal, and being a stupid kid, I gave in, stopped going to school, and took a bus up to be with him. Things changed almost the instant I got there. He wasn't abusive, he did not hit me or insult me, but it seemed to me at the time that he had lost all sexual interest in me. We would have but not often, and where once he seemed outgoing, he now never wanted to leave his parents' house for any reason. We were still friends, but for 2 years of our relationship, all we really did was play video games from the time we got up in the morning until the time we went to bed. He also started gaining weight from all the delivery food he ordered literally every day. Just to get out of the house, I got a job at a pet store where I made my first friends in that state. The whole time we were together, he worked in an office warehouse for a drugstore chain. So my life before the pet store was waking up, seeing him leave for work, having awkward conversations with his siblings and parents until he came home, and then video games. Honestly, I started thinking about leaving him a year into this. I felt he worked really hard to get me, but once he had me, he stopped trying or caring. It wasn't long after this that he revealed to me that he was bisexual. No big deal. I am too. But he started what I can only describe as passive guilting me. He'd talk about being attracted to men and how that was a part of his life he could never explore now. We started arguing over it, and eventually I said something stupid like, "Go get it out of your system." I didn't know this would become a common thing. Through his phone, I accidentally discovered that he had met up with a man for sex. I confronted him about it. We fought, he apologized, and he promised he would never do it again. Truthfully, I wanted to move back home, but when this all happened, I didn't have the best relationship with my parents, and I thought moving home might be worse. This happened 2 more times, and I forgave him 2 more times. Or at least I said I did. I started saving up money from my job and planned to leave him and get my own place, but before I could do much, I discovered I was pregnant. Instantly, his interest came back and he was extremely nice to me again. I threatened to leave if he cheated again, and I told him that we had to change and couldn't keep living at his parents' house because I was ashamed of being our age and still doing that. To still do that with a child would make me feel worse. To his credit, he did change and started cleaning up. It was decided that we would move into his parents' second home and begin renting from them as the tenants who were previously renting had left. It was during our move that I met his cousin, whom I will call Jennifer. I really liked her at first as we were into the same kind of music and anime and had the same sense of style. She also had a little boy and started to give me young mother advice. When we were moving into our home, she and illustrious Fox, 𝓕 I'll call him John from now on, brought over a lot of their son's baby furniture, a crib, and so forth. And I was very thankful. But then he started hanging out with Jen a lot. She got him concert tickets for his birthday and took him out. He got a weekend job at a Halloween carnival, and she was always posting pictures of herself there with him and his co-workers. She started to seem a little needy and close to him, but they were cousins, so I didn't think anything was wrong with it. Or if I did, I called myself crazy for thinking that. He also started wearing kilts around this time. It was weird, but he is Scottish, so I figured he was awkwardly embracing his heritage. Then they went from flannel to tartan, whatever designs, to wearing one made of denim that just looked like a skirt. Jen started coming around a lot more the more pregnant I got, and I noticed that whenever she was going to be around or they were going somewhere, he'd be in kilts. They would claim to go to movies together or hang out with mutual friends. I was very suspicious, but attributed it to hormones. After my daughter was born, Jen disappeared overnight, though they would talk on the phone a lot. I tried to snoop once or twice on his phone, but there was nothing. He was working hard and behaving like a good father, so all the weirdness just vanished over time. A few months later, Jen started coming around again. It got to the point where she was coming by almost every day, asking him to help with something because John was at work. I remember once while they were both present, I said, "Fine, go date your damn cousin again." I would find out later that it was during this time that John had discovered that Max was sending Jen dirty texts, but she told him she'd deal with it. Then one afternoon, as I was getting lunch ready for my daughter, I got a knock at the door, and it was John. He looked very composed, but he got 4 or 5 words into explaining to me what he discovered before he got choked up and teary. All of my suspicions were true. Max was cheating on me with his cousin. I went ballistic and exposed them on every social media platform I have. I saw Max 3 times after that moment because he ran away. The first was him pulling away from our house after he snuck in to collect his things. The second was meeting him in a parking lot because he wanted to talk in person, and the third was seeing him in the hospital after he poisoned himself. This is already very long, and I plan to continue writing as a therapeutic release, but I'm glad I've got at least this off my chest. A now deleted user left the following comment. I have followed John's version of the story. First of all, congratulations on your baby. Actually happy for you guys. You guys are healing together in a drastic way. I know that Max was cheating on you with other men before this cousin fiasco, but I thought that you were happily married. But this guy is another level of We shouldn't talk ill to the dead, but he deserved it. I never expected to be this bad even before this shit show started. You are in such a low place. Anyway, take care of the baby and elder daughter. Sherry actually saw this post and made the following response. I always tried to make it look to everyone outside that we were happy and got along, but I was embarrassed. So embarrassed of what he had turned into. He didn't forbid me from having friends, but what few friends I did have, he talked so much garbage about that I stopped hanging out with them because I didn't want to deal with his long-winded speeches about them. When John told me he was cheating and with whom, it was like the straw that broke the camel's back. I'm not happy that he's dead. Even though he did everything he did, it still hurts to see what happened to my old friend. Our daughter probably will not remember much about him, and for that, I am thankful. And that was the final update we ever got from OP and Sherry. This entire story was an insane roller coaster. First finding out that OP's now ex was having an affair, then realizing it was an affair with her cousin, then finding out that those two were having sex even before OP's ex met OP. The entire journey was such an entertaining read in the absolute worst way. This affair can't even be called an affair since OP was shoehorned in after the cousins were already together. If you recall in part 1, OP's ex explicitly said that she still loved her cousin even after their relationship was revealed. Then she explained that on a particular night when OP was comforting her while she was crying because Max got Sherry pregnant and they were going to have a kid. Just a crazy woman. I genuinely think that both OP's ex and Max are disgusting people, but nevertheless, I don't think they deserve to die. So it was a bit unfortunate to learn that Max did pass away.